Hello and welcome to a special edition of the .org Thought Corner. We have two amazing gentlemen that are gurus in the industry. We have Joe Abley with us, the CTO of .org, who is extremely passionate about DNS education in the .org community. And we have Jeff Bedser, who is vice chair of PIR's board of directors and CEO of iThreat, which is a cyber threat intelligence company. Which is so fitting for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is this month. So, hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Good. I'm fantastic. Don't sound so excited. We are going to be talking about cybersecurity and internet security from two different perspectives. From your perspectives, and speaking deeper into the general answers, why is keeping the internet secure so super imperative to the global society? Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the inherent key word there is society. Like if we just live in an anarchy, then we imagine that's not that much fun. We're then living in the plot of a zombie movie or something, and everyone's scared to go out and nobody gets to go to the shops. So we have to have some kind of rules around the place. And I think, a lot of the time as technologists, we're mainly unqualified to really understand the big picture. We're not sociologists, we're not politicians, we're not lawyers, we're not police. But what we are and what we have control of is technology. And I think it's fair enough to say that even if we don't understand the big picture, we understand that the big picture involves a certain number of fairly basic things. Some things like privacy, or some things like authenticity, or admissions control. We know that everybody has a lock in their house, and you don't just give a key to everyone that you don't know. You have a key for a reason. You have a lock for a reason. So I think I look at it that way. I think you don't design a house and decide that you're not going to put locks on the doors. You don't design a house and have windows that just are permanently open so anybody can wander in. You imagine that there's some basic needs here, even if you're a builder and you're not a sociologist. And I think we're in the same kind of category.
And that
So
is the internet.
yeah, I mean, the internet is one part of our lives, but maybe especially this year, it's a big part.
Yeah.
So maybe it's kind of one thing that weirdly, unexpectedly draws all of us together. It's a common infrastructure that almost transcends everything else that makes us different. So it makes sense to me to say we probably have some basic things that we need to worry about. We need to have some degree of, personal space, even in a global context.
Mm-hmm. And in the face of tragedy, the internet has actually given a lot to many different people and helped us in so many different ways. Jeff, what are your thoughts on that question?
To summarize it, it's about trust, right? Because, when you're talking about cybersecurity, you're talking about protecting people from bad things. And a lot of bad things is cybercrime, it's fraud. And, you have to deal with it. You've got to react to it because at the core of it, to the societal and social part Joe's talking about, there's always going to be criminals. There's always been criminals, and they use whatever means they can to enrich themselves. And the internet happens to be a very, very lucrative place for cyber criminals. And cybersecurity is about understanding what they do and how they do it so that you can prevent, detect, remove it. Because at the end of the day, it's about trust in a system that is powering most of the global economy these days, and bluntly reducing victimization. Because when you don't do cybersecurity, you don't protect the end users of the internet, they get victimized, they get robbed, they get money stolen from them, they get their identities stolen. And look, that erodes trust. So it all pulls together.
So Jeff, can you share a little bit more detail about iThreat and how the company works to protect the cyberspace? Like, are there any current programs that you'd like to highlight, or any roles that you guys have specifically played to assist the .org community in keeping their part of the internet safe?
Sure. So there's things we do as a company, for profit, and things we do charitably because it's the right thing to do. And on the profit side, what we do is we have programs that are designed to understand threats for our clients. It's basically in the military terms, would be called a signal intelligence. You've got a lot of information on the internet, right? More information than any of us can ever consume in a lifetime. And it's flowing like a fire hose. And what we do is we automate the process of finding relevant pieces of information and explaining to our client what they mean so they can address that threat or that risk. And a kind of a signal detection to signal intelligence model. And, that goes into the DNS significantly. because phishing, right? For example, right? When you've got the PH phishing, or the emails that are designed to convince you that you're interacting with someone you do trust when they're not the person you trust. The structure of a phish is usually designed to confuse you into believing it's a different word or a different structure. So understanding the DNS as a threat vector for any company is really important. So the aspects of protecting a company so they can actually continue to be profitable and continue to offer services to their customers is an important part of the whole ecosystem. But on the altruistic side, we do things with local food banks where we donate food, the monies that food produced. We've done a lot of that this year. We've actually quadrupled the amount of money we've been putting into helping the local community.
Oh, wow.
Headquartered in New Brunswick, New Jersey. But we're also doing programs where I'm working with the Internet Society to bring in free Wi-Fi for a mesh network into New Brunswick for the school-age kids, because the whole disparity of access to the internet is a major qualifier for advanced opportunities through education as you grow. So, right now, when most schools have gone to virtual only, and if the household can't afford a broadband connection, how's that child going to learn?
Right.
How far behind are they going to get? So, yeah, the programs and the things we get involved with tend to be things that can help reduce abuse and reduce crime and then detect it. And a lot of the volunteer things I do personally, and I've been working with Joe for over a decade on the Security and Stability Advisory Committee, or SAC, at ICANN, volunteering our time looking at these types of security and stability threats to see what can be done on a program basis to try and reduce them.
Great. All great stuff. And Joe, what does .org do from your perspective as the CTO to help ensure that the DNS is secure? How does educating the .org community actually work for the bigger picture of all of this? And what role do you play in this?
Well, there are definitely aspects to the way that we run the .org registry that are really geared towards protecting, the people who have the domain names, but also the people that are not our customers or not our customers' customers. They are the people who just use these domain names around the world. The challenge, the constant challenge with the internet, I think, and the reason why the internet is often cited as a source of threats to security and safety, as well as opportunities to make things better, as some of the ways that Jeff was describing, is that things that used to be expensive are now really cheap. Like the idea of phishing scams and 419 scams. 419 comes from the Nigerian code for a kind of scam that used to be perpetrated by postal mail, and then it was perpetrated by faxes, and now it happens on the internet. And the cost of doing these things continues to go down. I mean, if you get junk calls today, way more than you used to get in the past, phone calls are way cheaper today than they were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was expensive to make an international call. So you wouldn't make 10,000 of them hoping that one of them might make you some money in a scam.
Right.
But with the internet, you can send 100 billion pieces of email, and if 10 of them get back to you and earn you some money, then that's a profitable return. So I think what we have to try and understand is that we are kind of working both ends of it all the time. We're trying to make things as seamless as possible so that we can get innovation in every corner of the network. But that innovation doesn't just work for the good things. It doesn't just work for people who are making a living and starting small businesses and teaching children about science and education and the arts. It also is innovation for every person who's a criminal who wants to try and make money out of somebody else against their will. So the angles that we have around this are twofold, really. One of them is, we try and implement the best current practice in the technology that's available for DNS registry. We try and make sure credentials that you need to rely on to make sure your domain is not being stolen by somebody else are secure. We try to make sure that when you do a DNS lookup, which is the technical part of what happens when someone uses a domain name, we try and make sure that that stuff is reliable as possible. It's as hard as possible for someone to give a fake response that might lead someone to a dangerous place.
Right.
But at the other end of all this, we have to understand that we also have to be reactive. We have to understand that the entire system we've built enables criminals in some sense, just like it enables regular people. And the way we do that is we can't do it up front because we can't predict what someone will use a domain name for. We have to be reactive. And that means we have to look at what we've built and understand as best we can how we detect bad things when they're happening and take what measures are necessary to try and shut these things down. So it's kind of a cycle. We make this stuff available for everybody. You know, the price of a domain name is very cheap. Anybody can afford one pretty much in the developed world and the developing world. But you have to understand that sometimes those things are not going to be used for purposes that we would normally consider to be safe, which is why we have to spend all this extra money on top to try and make sure those things that are happening, that are not safe, are dealt with. So it's a kind of a loop in both directions.
Yeah. Very proud of .org and iThreat for their efforts in keeping the internet safe. Hopefully this will teach other people and give kind of a different perspective into what we're doing behind the scenes and working so hard and trying to do this, and the reasons why it's important for us on both ends to do the things that we're doing and working so hard for. Are you guys involved in any upcoming events, or are you presenting anywhere, talking about any, I mean, not anywhere because we can't really go anywhere because COVID, but like digitally, like, are you going to be Zooming with any events or presentations that you want to talk about that you can think of coming down the pipeline, or is everything for 2020 kind of settled right now until past the holidays?
I did a lot last week and this week with the ICANN meeting that was virtually in Hamburg, Germany. Usually speaking at 3 or 4 in the morning was fun.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing.
You know, it's funny, the beginning of this year, I mean, in February, March in particular, that's usually busy time for conferences. Mm-hmm. Those of us who travel to these conferences to learn and share our experience and to generally make the internet safer, we have a lot of travel going on at the beginning of the year, and that's all canceled because suddenly around the world, you know, depending on where you are, earlier or later, suddenly everything's grounded, nobody can travel anywhere, and everyone's too busy at home having a nervous breakdown to think about anything. But now, fast forward to the fourth quarter of the year, and the opposite is true. So while it used to be that, that was a busy part of the year where you might have a couple of events in the same month, now we've got pretty much a meeting going on every week. Mm. You never know what time zone it's in. Like the ICANN meeting was in Hamburg. There's a RIPE meeting next week, which is a European group. That's happening in Amsterdam. It's happening virtually, but it's happening on an Amsterdam time zone. We've got a DNS OARC meeting, which is a research group to do with the DNS, their meeting. We've got other groups that have even given up with the normal cadence of meeting, and they're just holding conferences every week.
Right.
So, I mean, at the moment, you say, are there any events coming up? It's like, I'm looking forward to a week where there are no events.
Well, and also, when they first started rescheduling the physical events to virtual events, they put it on the same schedule. It was all crammed in the same week. Now they're saying, well, that doesn't really work. So we're going to stretch it out over 3 weeks. And it's not every day. So you're going into an alternate time zone. You're like having jet lag without traveling. But it's instead of having 5 days in a different time zone, it's I get to be on that call at 3 a.m. on Monday. Yeah. I don't have to be on it again until Wednesday, and then it happens again on Friday. But now it's 3 weeks in a row of that.
It's like consistent jet lag for months, and you're all confused. I get it. But you did say the RIPE meeting is coming up. Are you presenting at that? And then also, well, if you are presenting at it, I'm sure that we will be promoting it socially. Matter of fact, I know we will. And also, I will tag both of your social media handles, if it's okay with you, in this video so that our audience will be able to find you and follow some of your thoughts on the cybersecurity and internet security topic moving forward. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me for this Thought Corner.
This is a pleasure. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
This was fun. Okay. Thanks, guys. And you guys, will talk to you later. And thank you for joining us for this special episode of the .org Thought Corner talking about internet security.